Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tech Tab. It's so fun to be here with you. We're excited that this is our first show, and you got a little sneak peek of Bob back there, my amazing co-host. Bob, thanks for joining me as my co-host.
Yeah,
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited for our very first show. This is fantastic.
It's going to be a lot of fun. So,
Yeah.
if you are excited about AI and technology, this is the show for you. We're going to launch a nerd alert and teach you an important technical term. Then we're going to cover all the important AI news in our Tech Buzz segment. Then we're going to finish off with a fun quiz that you all can join in and try to win. It's going to be a battle. So we'll see how it goes. Everybody hop in those comments, and I would love to hear from you. We're going to call out some of the comments live on the show. Ask your questions, give us your thoughts. Tell us everything about you. Can already see people streaming in from all over. We've got Dan from Atlanta. Randall's joining us from East Haven, Connecticut. Salute. Thanks for dropping by. Tony's here. Josh is here. The whole crew is here. Everybody, why don't you hop in the comments and tell us, number one, where you're calling in from. And number two, what is your go-to AI tool? Be really fun to hear what everybody is using right now. So on that question, Bob, what is the AI tool you just couldn't live without?
Do you have to guess?
I do have to guess.
Yeah. So AI Playground, because it's a product I manage at Intel on the GPU team. So I can't live with that. Without that, it pays the bills. But generally, I use a lot of the stuff that's connected to the web. I started with Perplexity. I've been using a lot of Grok, and then now Gemini is moving up on the list. I know you're going to be talking a little bit more about that and why. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
good to have you here. We've got two amazing guests here on the show today. Our first guest is Claire Vo, Chief Product and Technology Officer at LaunchDarkly and founder of ChatPRD. We don't often have a Chief Product and Technology Officer, by the way, but it's lovely to have you here on the show. My first question for you is, what is one way that your kids use AI that you either love, you hate, or you're scared of?
So the one that I love is my 8-year-old is using ChatPRD right now to build a business. So he has too many books. He does not make a good use of our library up the street. Instead, he uses his cute blue eyes and my wallet to go into bookstores and say, "Mom, please, just one more." And so he has piles and piles of books. And so he's using ChatPRD right now to build a business plan to resell his books. And last night, he actually hit that export to V0 button and create himself a little website and is making like a QR code to put up in the neighborhood.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm co-founding yet another business
Another company.
inside my house. Yeah.
I mean, how proud must you be of number one, that's amazing, but also it just shows us where the future is going. With
You know
our
what's funny is this kid cannot even type. Like he does not have the baseline skills to type. Like doing a little of this or like voice, but
Well, me.
the man made a website and is gonna start selling some books.
All right. Well, props to your 8-year-old. Love it.
Awesome.
We're already seeing some amazing people hop in the comments. Tell us what tools they're using. Hertzfeld Labs is using Windsurf 100%. We'll see if there's an interesting announcement about that today, by the way. Matt's calling in from Pittsburgh, using Gemini, Claude, Hugging Face, Replit, GPT, and Sora. So I think Matt's all in on AI. Chelsea's tuning in from Chicago. Love it. So good to have you all here. Pop in the comments. Keep telling us where you're calling in from. Tell us what your favorite AI tool is. Next up, we have another amazing guest. We're just packing the show today. His name is Logan Kilpatrick. And if you're an AI, you've seen this guy and you've seen his mustache. He's been around doing great things. Logan is the head of product for Google AI Studio. And my question for you, Logan, is what's a task that you use AI for all the time? It's your go-to task.
Well, it needs to be more PRDs. I wish I was using AI to write more PRDs, but there's some limitations there. I think coding, honestly, maybe that's too basic, but I think the time I spend coding is time I spend coding with AI. There's basically no difference between the two anymore. And I can't imagine, I don't think I've coded not with AI in the last like 2 years. So I think about like how scary that would be right now, especially with how good the models are. It seems like a different world we're living in.
Can you imagine actually typing all your code now? Like,
I just zero shotted a bunch of new websites with 2.5 Pro this morning, and I was like, it was like 700 lines. And I was sitting there and I was like, I would just never have, it's a great reminder of like, there's just infinite demand for software to be created in the world. And like, there's so much to be built. And like the limitation being like typing keys on a keyboard is pretty crazy. And now it's like, can you come up with ideas and have imagination and like have that agency? So it's super exciting.
Absolutely. It is exciting. As someone with a computer science degree that actually wrote C++ for a while and couldn't really understand it, but I did my best. It's amazing to use. I am using Gemini 2.5 Pro pretty much most time. So, well, today's going to be a fun show. We've got at least 55 minutes, maybe 60 minutes packed with interesting news, topic discussions. We've got a nerd alert where we're going to teach you a quick tech term. And we're going to have a lot of fun just chit-chatting. Everyone, I can see you in the comments. Thanks for hopping by. Please let us know where you're calling in from. Ronnie is calling from New York City, close to me here in Connecticut. And Ava is tuning also in from New York City. So we've got a bunch of people in the city. So let's get to it. Our first section is Nerd Alert. We're going to teach you something. Let's hit it. All right, so Nerd Alert. This is our quick segment where we teach you an important technical AI term. So our Nerd Alert term today is knowledge distillation. It's a trick of having a giant teacher model train a much smaller student model so that the student keeps most of the smarts but sheds the size and cost. A couple things to note about that. Knowledge distillation lets a compact model mimic a huge model, retaining accuracy while running on far less hardware. Another thing to note is that during training, the student model learns from the teacher's quote unquote soft answer, not just the correct answer, but how confident the teacher is in all the options, which gives the student more clues about what matters and what doesn't, helping it get smarter in a more nuanced way than if it only saw the right or wrong answers. And what this really means is that knowledge distillation allows AI to live right here on our laptops, our phones, on our edge devices, without having to do inference in the cloud with expensive GPUs. You know, I'm excited about this because I think for companies, enterprises, it really translates into faster responses, lower energy bills, less inference costs, et cetera, et cetera. So before I ask our amazing guests a little bit about this, you in the audience, I'm curious, where in your workflow would you use a quote unquote mini-me model of a giant model? And what might you do with it? And give me a thumbs up or thumbs down in the comments if you think that you're going to use a smaller distilled model, and we'll call out some of those folks. Before we go to your guests, I see some more folks joining. Carol calling in from Sao Paulo. Appreciate you being here. So Bob, I'm going to bat this over to you first. I know AI Playground uses distillation. I'm just curious, like, how does that work and what does it really unlock for people?
Yeah, so if folks aren't familiar with AI Playground, it allows you to do Gen AI locally on your AI PC or something with an Intel Arc GPU for Intel. So we're generally using a lot of distilled models because it's bringing the magic of the cloud-based, subscription-based AI down to the local level in smaller models. So DeepSeek is a really good example. The R1 distilled models run on AI Playground. And another one is just recently released LTX Video 096, which is a distilled model, which allows you to run video generation, maybe about 8 seconds in about 8 steps. So
Nice.
we're getting some of the more magical stuff that you would typically only get in cloud now running on a laptop. And it's just fantastic to see that momentum happen.
Yeah, it is cool. I'm just a fan for inference being democratized,
Yep.
AI being democratized, you know, so it's fun to see models running, you know, on device. Logan, I'm curious, you know, how do you see developers using distillation? Let's just think about the next kind of 12 months. What do you see happening?
Yeah, it's a super interesting thread to pull on. There's probably more. We could probably do an entire show just talking about this. My sort of brief answer is that twofold. I think the first piece of this is like the fundamental limitation for developers and the world to build with AI is that there's this economic cost associated with it. And I think if you look at like what is the limitation of like more interesting AI products being built in the world, in many ways it's like cost. Like developers are economically disincentivized from building AI into their products because like every incremental feature they add of AI like costs them directly money.
Right.
And like that's actually a really tough place to be in as far as a developer goes. So I have a lot of empathy. And I think also there's just a lot of like the sort of canonical wisdom right now for people who are building with AI is like start with the biggest, most expensive models, try to make your thing work, and then find ways to drive down cost and improve accuracy and do everything else that you need to from a developer flow. And I think for the last 24 months, I think developers have been doing that with distillation. So I think it makes a ton of sense. And for us at Google, I think it's wonderful to have sort of both ends of the coin, where we have sort of frontier proprietary models that sort of let people do that first step, and then also having sort of open source Gemma models sort of at the entire stack of model size from 27B all the way down to a billion parameters, I think is really interesting, because there are just so many use cases where it does make sense to have on-device models for whatever your use case is.
Yeah, I feel like I just want to use AI all the time on my phone. I just want Siri to work. So we won't talk about that. But I'm curious, Claire, like, do you use AI on a mobile very often? Like, what is it that you tend to do with AI on your phone?
On my phone, yeah, I mean, Chat GPT is definitely on the home screen. To me, it's replaced, again, kind of just general search and knowledge. So, questions that, again, I'm just going to be the mom today on today's call, because I have so many kid-based AI use cases. But, my kids ask me questions all the time. The sort of like, why is the sky blue questions, except because I'm raising a kid in San Francisco and they're my child. They're like, Mom, what is the downstream effects of the tariffs that I read in the Financial Times this morning? I'm like, how do I explain this to an 8-year-old? And so that sort of like quick answer is really important. And I think having something on device that is very low latency, high accuracy is a really nice interface to all this knowledge. And so it's definitely knowledge seeking. It's also mobile use cases tend to be like my novelty kind of device show off case. So when I'm showing less sophisticated folks AI, it's always more impressive to pull up something on your phone and say, look, I made this image, or look, I made this audio on this little device. That usually blows people's minds. So whether or not that could be done on a desktop or a laptop or web, that sort of form factor of the device is really accessible to folks that maybe aren't on the bleeding edge of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about 5.4 in a little bit, but and I assume there's distillation involved in the creation of 5.4. But I downloaded a small model recently on my machine, ran it, and honestly, it's getting to the point where like just kind of vibe checking these smaller distilled models, it's pretty hard to tell the difference, honestly, in the quality. The intelligence is getting high, and that's going to lead to another story which we're going to talk about, which is evals. Like, how do we measure this stuff? So we're going to dig into that. But let me say hello to some of the folks in the audience. We've got people calling in from everywhere. We've got B-Buck 500 calling in from Pasadena. Loving Claude 3.7 Sonnet, they say. We've got CJJ from Saratoga, New York. Love it. And Divya's here. Appreciate you being here, Divya. Thank you. And all sorts of people. Memo is using Notebook LM. Oh, Notebook LM. That's a fabulous. So quick sort of small story on Notebook LM. I'm on the board at this local organization, and we had a board meeting. And I took our board report and I pumped it into Notebook LM. And most of these folks don't use AI. And then I sent them the podcast summary, and they were like, who is that? Who's on the show? Who's talking about us? And they were delighted. So, all right. Well, we are going to keep moving. We've got another exciting section called Tech Buzz. So let's hit it. Tech Buzz is very tech buzzy. We've got a lot of interesting stories going on today. We're going to walk you through, and we've got about 6 that we're going to focus on. The first one is about Microsoft unveiling 5.4, which is a series of small but mighty models. They really pack between 3.8 billion and 14 billion parameters into the model size, yet they score nearly as high as much larger systems on reasoning tasks. Self-check training boosts accuracy on math, code, and planning. Bottom line, heavyweight capability that can run on everyday laptops. Great for edge deployments. We're showcasing the model, which is on Hugging Face. It's not open weights, but it is it is a model you can download. So lots of interesting things coming out of Microsoft at 5.4. The question I have for all of you in the audience is, would you trade a little accuracy for on-device speed? I'm kind of curious. Do you want a little less accuracy with more speed? So you might use a smaller model like 5.4. I'll read out some of your comments. And everybody wants to know where I got my shirt, and it was at the Intel store. So that's the answer to that question. So let's send it over to Claire. What do you think is going to happen in the product world with experiences with these smaller models? Like, what are we going to unlock with these things?
Yeah, I tend to think that latency is sort of the killer feature in a lot of these models and building competitive experiences. I mean, when the actual ability to build a great product starts to become commoditized, then you really have to think about technical differentiators. And I think time to generation and time that you take to output something of quality is a high differentiator. And again, I'm going to go to my mom thing last night, which is, my kid set up something in V0, he set it up in Lovable, and he set it up in Bolt, and just had zero patience for waiting. Like, it actually gave up and said, this is so boring to watch. It's so slow. And I'm like, dude, have you seen me type code? That's slow. This is not slow. So I do think there's this like latency as a killer feature that people building product experiences and selecting models really need to think about. The second thing I think about is offline access is really still quite critical. As much as we like to say we're globally connected, online all the time, not having to fight with airplane Wi-Fi and still be able to get good work done is such a productivity accelerant. I like to use things on car rides and in lots of remote areas. And I just think the ability to take these models with you on device without having to connect to the web is a differentiated experience that we figured out in some SaaS and other web products, and I think is going to be a fallback that we're going to figure out in these AI-powered products as well.
Amen. Yeah, that would be great. I feel like there's a lot of times I'm on a plane, using Cursor and like begging the Wi-Fi to work, and it would be nice if it could route to the right model based on how much intelligence you need, and just use the model on my machine if you need to.
Yep.
Logan, I can see you sort of nodding. What's your take on that?
Claire, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, it is like the product experience of this like text to app paradigm is so exciting. And in most of those cases, it uses sort of the higher intelligence models. But then it becomes like very, after you spend like 20 minutes doing it, it becomes very apparent like how rate limited you are and like how humans just like want this instantly. And you can imagine the like not too distant future. Like, I think it's already technically possible. I think this is just like mostly a cost thing of like, can you make those models basically near instant? But you could imagine the cursor experience where you're just literally just like clicking through different iterations that the model might have gone through and generated. And like, that's a wildly different product experience than like, I'm going to sit there and I was doing this morning, like generating a bunch of new websites, and it was like 90 seconds and I'm sitting there waiting and I'm like, God, 90 seconds feels like a long time when I have to sit there and watch it. But really is like actually remarkably fast given what these models are doing today. So I think a lot of this comes back to this like cost trade-off story, which is like, you could do this faster. It's just a question of like, in today's world, are people willing to pay more for that? And I think part of the answer, I think, is no, but yeah, maybe for certain people.
It's interesting because now when I code in Cursor, I'm waiting for the ding to go. And it is sort of that 90-second gap now I have in my life all the time. And, okay, do I open a second tab and code a little bit over there and see what happens? So it's going to be interesting to see how human behavior evolves with this idea of like on tap intelligence that takes just long enough that you have to wait. For now, we'll see.
I think that's my push for you, Ryan, is like, that's the wrong product experience. And I'm really hopeful that we get like, people don't get trained in that way on this like current paradigm where you have to sit there and wait. There's this like awkward enough gap. I think if it was like 20 seconds, we would not find something else to do and we would just kind of sit there. But I also think you lose because of how a lot of products sort of build the like AI outputs, you actually lose, like you could be like learning during that moment, which is something that I think about a lot. Like instead of being able to like glean any amount of information from what the model's doing, there's just like stuff flying past you way too fast for you to grok. And like you can imagine the product experience where it's like the model is actually guiding you to sort of get a mental model of what it's doing in real time instead of throwing a million tokens at you on the screen. So I think we're going to get that type of product experience. I think that's already possible today. It's just a matter of somebody building that experience.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So you could actually see the model summarizing what it's doing, but in human speed, right? While it's doing, matrix multiplication speed. So Bob, I know you think a lot about on-device with AI Playground. What do you see people being able to do now with models like 5.4 that they couldn't do before?
Well, I think it's about accessibility to the latest and greatest. Not everybody is in Palo Alto, California. Not everybody has unlimited subscriptions to cloud services. So I think some of these, better models, higher parameter models that are coming down and now accessible on local, especially with quantization. I mean, if you've got 30 gigs of models, you can now run that with quantization on a laptop. And so what you're seeing is you're getting more people around the globe being able to experiment with this. And I don't know if you guys have all done this, but as vibe coding started to come out, I started to play with different models. Obviously, I started with Claude on that, and it's like, oh wow, can I build that game that I built like 15 years ago through vibe coding? And now I'm kind of starting to do the same thing with local. And it's like, okay, I'm starting to get there a little bit, and I'm learning a little bit more how to do this. So I think access to the technology and allowing people to iterate to get us to the next level. So I think just seeing more of these advanced models come down local is just better for the whole industry.
Absolutely. So Matt Wesney, an answer to the question of would you trade a little accuracy for on-device speed? He said yes and no, maybe not the best answer.
Two minds. Yes.
Yeah, I think we all feel like that. And then Divya says, I guess it depends on what I'm trying to get done, but appreciate accuracy 51% of the time. So love seeing that. All right, we've got another story lined up. So let's hit it. Number 2 is Amazon launches Nova Premier. It's a multimodal model on AWS Bedrock. Nova Premier understands text, images, and video, and boasts a 1 million token context window. It can digest huge documents or code bases in a one-shot. There's no more chunking. It runs inside Bedrock, which keeps sensitive workloads under your existing AWS umbrella. There's a lot to unpack here. For the audience, I'd love to know a couple things about context token size. So what's the max token size y'all are currently using? When you're throwing stuff at a model, what's your typical context size? And then what are you using huge context windows for? So I'd love to hear your comments from the audience. And then also another question is, do you see video understanding as a must-have or a nice-to-have in 2025? I know, Logan, you think about context windows and large context windows a lot. I think it's exciting for us devs. So I'm curious, what do you see a large context window offering to devs that we couldn't do before?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so much of what people want to do with AI is like bounded by context. And I think like one, it's like, at the model level, like putting in like what's the limitation historically, like how much context you can put in. I think so folks have sort of like moved away from that being the limitation. And now if you look at it, like the actual limitation is on the user's willingness to take the time to put the context into the context window. And I think that's actually an entirely, like, that's not a model problem. That's a product/human psychology problem that I think makes it so that people get this experience with AI where it's either just like a lot of work for them to get the models to do useful stuff, or they get pretty mediocre model responses because the model doesn't have the right context to make a meaningful suggestion to you. So I think at the model level, you can kind of solve that by having the models, ask the right questions and do follow-ups and be trained to not sort of just directly respond to whatever the question is. I think that's actually hard, and there's a lot of nuance to that. Ideally, you would want the product experience to sort of pull the tokens out of someone if they're interested in giving them, so that they can actually get the right model response.
Yes.
It has been interesting to see how much reasoning has driven this long context situation. I think if without going into all the details, like I think historically people just like didn't use long context a lot. I think part of it was like the context in the context window was just like not as usable with like the first generation long context models. Like they were really good at needle in a haystack, which was like pulling out one thing from the context window, maybe even a couple of things if you were lucky, but like attending to all the context in the context window was really, really hard for the models to do.
Right.
And I think now with this reasoning capability mirroring, being sort of married up with long context, it actually makes that context usable. And there's like I think a meaningful shift in how people are now using the models. And I think actually a lot of this is driven by coding where, you know, you just dump in many files, an entire repo, and there's just like there's almost infinite tokens to attend to in larger code bases.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually becoming a context and a token connoisseur. Like I feel like people don't need to be, you know, prompt engineers. They need to be token connoisseurs where we really start caring about which context we're giving. And Claire and I were having a discussion around this actually around, yeah, you're right. It's actually a human problem to take the time to figure out the right context and give it versus being lazy. I'll say,
Ryan, my push for you is I think that's another example of like, it's the wrong product experience. I think like people building the products need to make it so that like, that is like, it's just not implicitly clear, I think, for a lot of people that like, this is what needs to happen. Because I think in how we interact with humans, we just like assume that there's a lot of like shared contextual understanding. And there's like a lot of the sort of context passing back and forth, which happens in different contexts. And like with the models, that doesn't happen. And I think it's this like barrier that people who are building these products need to take the next step on.
I agree.
Yeah, and if I could give some advice for product builders out there, stop calling it context. Like that's not what users it's like, give me code, give me another document, give me the website of your competitor, give me these actual practical things, and then the back end scaffold it into what the model reads as context. But I think even like trying to put it upon the user to like put stuff in context is, again, I think the raw user experience. It exposes, you know, it sort of forces users to meet the dev tool where it's at, as opposed to exposing a product that's inherently intuitive to use.
Amen. I totally agree with that. I want to dig into that a little bit more with you. I think, Claire, your connection's going a little bad on us. You want to give it a quick reset and come on back. We'll miss you. Context windows. Logan, I agree. It's like, I don't want to have to figure out my context. Like I really think Cursor or Windsurf or something else should be doing that for me. But I think the reality is right now we do need to care. I will say, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the show, like I use Gemini 2.5 Pro all the time. It's my primary driver because of the context window and the intelligence. Like it's just so good. So my surprise question for you is, I know today you shipped an update to it. And I think there's some cool things it does. And I actually would love to give you a chance to tell us what was shipped in the update and what should we be excited about.
Yeah, well, I think the sort of real world feedback from people like you, Ryan, who are using the model all the time will be the most useful thing. But at the highest level, we shipped an updated version of Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is our sort of frontier, most powerful model that we have available today. Has a 1 million token context window, really excels at coding. And I think the funny thing is this model is like, the update is that it's even better at coding. So I think it was the thing that people were already most excited about for this model. So I'm happy that we were able to keep making it stronger. And specifically web development and front end is really where you'll see the biggest delta. I think the previous iteration of the model was sort of good when you gave it a harness and sort of had it go and try to solve some of these problems as folks are using products like Cursor and Windsurf and others. But I think now the model actually just like has a better intuitive sense of like what good looks like from like a visual perspective. And I was the test that I've been doing is just like one-shotting a bunch of like different websites. And I put together one for just like a pizza shop. And I was just like, I kind of want to buy pizza from this place. Like, this is a beautiful UI. I wish they all looked like this. So I've been having a lot of fun, like geeking out and just building a bunch of stuff. I think I also, my sort of next side project on this is going to be sort of a way to help people make their personal websites just like zero shot and just like scroll through the different iterations of like possible styles and stuff. And it's just like, it's so like having good taste for web development is like such a hard skill to have. And like to be able to outsource even a little bit of that to the model, I think like for me as someone who doesn't have good design taste, actually feels very freeing to not have to think about that. So I'm very happy this model has made progress on that.
I'm sure you have taste. Now, maybe if you can execute on that taste, it's different. But I want to actually bat this over to Claire, who you look fabulous now. You're back, I think.
Great.
So as the product person on the show, if Gemini 2.5 Pro is going to have better taste and be able to do UI better, what does that do for us? Are you excited about that, or do you think no?
Yeah, of course I'm excited. Take me away. Also a big fan of 2.5. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard for people to scale taste. And a lot of times it relies on these single points in companies or your ability to access good taste or have somebody articulate to you what good taste look like. And it's not just taste in is this nice? Is it usable? Is it intuitive? Is it simple? Does the design system scale? And so I think any tool that can make high quality experience building accessible to folks, whether or not they have the experience or hard skills, just means that more cool products are going to be in the world. I think the other thing is there's a lot of garbage legacy software out there.
Yeah,
and we all use it, and we all are work around the sharp edges. And I just think the ability for companies to modernize their experiences quickly will be another great boon for both consumers and companies.
I totally agree. Yeah, I know we chat about this as well, but I'm a member at a club, and I'm literally thinking about redoing their entire software stack because I hate it so much that we have to use it. I'm like, I can probably vibe code this in like a weekend.
Yep.
And we'll move on to our next subject in a second. I want to call out some of the comments in the crowd. B-Buck 500 likes the new term that we've launched here, which is token connoisseur. I want all of us to take notes and take that back to our meetings. And then John Smith is looking for more paradigm shifts. Absolutely. Dan says using Gemini 2.5 with a 1 million token context window. So Logan, you got some more fans out there. Let's go to the next story. We've got a lot going on. There's so much happening in this industry. It's hard to keep up. And this one's actually about Gemini. So Gemini added native image creation editing. And you can now generate an image, upload your own, iterate with multi-step edits, all inside the chat. Gemini remembers prior edits, acting like an on-demand graphic designer, which we all need. And Google invisibly watermarks every AI image to encourage responsibility, traceable content. So quick question for the audience. Would you trust an AI editor for your marketing assets? Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Logan, this is obviously near and dear to your heart. How do you see developers using specifically image generation in the API? What kind of new things are we going to see happen here?
Yeah, I think actually the killer use case right now has been image editing, which has been interesting to see. So the model can definitely like zero shot or just like make an image based on what you describe. But I think the coolest thing has been the model's ability to sort of keep temporal consistency or just like consistency of like all the things in the image minus what you're asking it to change, which has historically been really, really hard for models. If you tried any of the sort of actually leading up to this model, any of the previous iterations of image generation, image editing models, like they oftentimes change a bunch of things. So like it's hard to, if you wanted to, make a comic book, for example, and sort of have consistency in a character or something like that, and have it all be like purely done by an AI model. Really hard for the models to be able to do that. They just want to change a bunch of different stuff. And I think now with this native capability inside of Gemini, we start to see some of these new use cases being unlocked. And I think the other really interesting thing is what happens when these systems have world knowledge. And I think if you look again, like historically, traditional image generation, image editing tools, like don't have world knowledge. They don't know what happens. Exactly. They don't understand what's actually happening when, like, if you drop an apple on the ground, what would that look like in an image? What's the impact of that? And because these models, like, it's like an LLM at the end of the day, it's Gemini that has this world knowledge. It's able to do a bunch of things from like an editing perspective, or like the way you interact with it from an editing perspective, just like feels a lot more intuitive than it would if you were doing this with another tool. So I don't even think it like feels actually like an entirely new class of tools versus like a replacement for a previous iteration of tools, which I also think is really interesting. I think there's still like, you still need Photoshop, you still need all these other tools.
Right.
This is just like a new tool in your tool belt as you think about doing that sort of creative workflow.
Yeah, I'll take all the new tools we can get. And people in the audience agree. So Orland's given us a thumbs up. Garmani's given us thumbs up. GitMax says thumbs up. So a lot of people are already saying they're definitely going to lean on AI for image editing. Bob, I know you think a lot about images with AI Playground. I know that specifically part of this feature for Gemini is watermarking these images. Why don't you talk to me a little bit about AI watermarks and images and like where you think we're going with all that?
Well, I love what's being discussed here in terms of a kind of an invisible to the user watermark. So I think watermarking is really important if we're trying to have some level of transparency. This was an AI generated image, but if we're watermarking as a way to gate the reuse of that image, then I think that's problematic. Allow people to generate the image, allow the images to be used, but allow some software or program or AI to say, you know what, I know that this was AI generated. So I love that aspect of this, is some sort of invisible watermarking that can be detected as this image proliferates throughout the internet and throughout usage, but don't put something on there that gates the usage of it. So
yeah, absolutely. I know that I think Andre Karpathy was talking about this, how really we need to start thinking about content being consumable by AI now. And I think he was talking mostly about text, but I do think this flows into the image bucket as well. If the internet starts to become full of AI created content, what we really want is the ability for AI to understand like what was created by AI and not. So I'm interested and excited to kind of see where this goes. So Logan, real quick, so where can people try this? Is this just by going to the site? Do they need the Gemini app? How do you use it?
Yeah, two places right now. AI Studio, which is our sort of developer platform, has this model. If you go to the model drop down, it's under Gemini 2.0, and then it's Gemini 2.0 image generation. You can do the generation and the editing capability. And then in the Gemini app, if you're sort of a sort of quote unquote consumer user, gemini.google.com. It's not fully rolled out to everyone. So the caveat is, you might be in the rollout, you might not be. It's sort of hopefully making its way to 100% of folks very soon. But yeah, you can there's actually nothing specific that you need to do. You just ask the model to edit an image, and then it'll go and do it if you're in that rollout, which is awesome.
Love it.
Yeah, Logan, if you don't mind, I've got a question for you on that, because you did mention how this control over editing an image has been difficult for AI. If we go through the Stable Diffusion history and all that, and there have been things like in painting and stuff like that, and even those are kind of cumbersome. Is this more like an omnigen solution where essentially you say, oh, I don't want that coffee cup on the table. Can you remove that? And then it will remove it. Is that how it works? Maybe you could just explain a little bit more how the editing works or the enhancement works.
Yeah, exactly that flow. So you could literally take an image, and folks should try this themselves if in AI Studio. Take an image of a kitchen table with a coffee mug and say, remove the coffee cup, and it will go away, which is really, really odd. Or hopefully, if all goes well, it'll go away. Yeah, so lots of power in that tool. And you can also add stuff. It does like image fusion as well, which is really cool. And it's a 2.0 Flash model, so it's just like actually fast at doing this. You don't have to sit there and wait like a couple of minutes.
Nice. So maybe a new term, vibe painting or something like that, because essentially it is like vibe coding. You're essentially directing it to iterate on an image until you get the one you like.
At what point do we stop with the vibe? Everything, it's all vibes. It's vibes all the way down. It's vibe semiconductor creation, vibe construction workers.
I was talking to a lawyer, and he's like, "Yeah, we should be vibe lawyering." I'm like, "Well, maybe." So we'll see how that goes. All right, we're going to keep rolling to our next story. We've got, I think this is one that is wild interesting. So Visa and Mastercard dive into agentic commerce. So Visa's new intelligent commerce API is what they're calling it. Lets AI agents find and pay for purchases via Visa's network. Mastercard, of course, is getting involved with their product called Agent Pay, which lets trusted AI assistants check out on your behalf within preset spending limits. So they have a little allowance, a little budget. For CEOs, it's a green light. The autonomous shopping flows are definitely moving from demo to deployment. And one extra thing that we saw is OpenAI announced shopping. So I think we're seeing the genesis of agentic commerce. This is gonna be wild, y'all. So audience, I'm curious, would you let an AI place routine orders for you? Just like hop in the comments and let us know if you're gonna give your AI your credit card. And then what's your biggest fear about giving AI payment credentials? So pop in the comments, let us know what you think. Claire, yes. Curious, as our product expert, what kind of new products do you think we'll see that use agentic commerce?
Just taking a step back, if there's one part of the web that is A/B tested within an inch of its life, it's the efficiency of different payment models, right? Like everybody has gone to that checkout page and like pay by Shopify, Apple Pay, pay by credit card, pay as a guest, pay as logged in. So I just see this as another kind of transaction model that's going to be experimented on, and consumer choice will lead the way. It'll be really interesting if the purchase part of it is actually the unsolved problem as opposed to the discovery and selection part. So, God bless those product marketers at these commerce companies. I think they're getting into the conversation and starting to carve out the space of agentic commerce. Yeah. But putting in the credit card number, I don't think is the unsolved problem. It is, how do you actually build new shopping experiences that are high quality, that are trusted, right, that give me the thing that I want to buy? Great, right. You have permission to my credit card to actually buy it. But I think that front-loaded problem is much more complex than the transaction part. That being said, I will sign up yesterday for an agent that just refills my shopping subscription and goes through and says, you know what, looking at everything in the past, you really only need to order this much salmon, and you're over ordering blueberries and they go, they get moldy after a little bit. Like that, I will do all day. You can have my credit card, direct access to my bank account. So I do think there's some interesting sort of agentic shopping flows available out there. I'm not convinced the transaction part is the hard problem.
I love it. Good call out. We've got some fun comments coming in about, would you give an AI your credit card? Madison says, no way. Yeah, Get Max says, yep, with a thumbs up. Matt says, nope. And then Josh says, I already have an agentic shopper who lives in my house and spends my money, which I think is his lovely other person, which is great. So I would definitely give an AI agent a little bit of money to solve a bunch of small problems for me. So I think we'll see this explosion of small problems being solved that we didn't have the time or intelligence or attention to solve before. Logan, are you going to give your AI your credit card? What's going to happen here?
My assumption is that this ends up being like a feature in all of these systems. Like if you're whatever your credit card has a bunch of you could delegate a certain budget to a virtual card to one of the, I feel like that's actually not hard to do. And then you give that to some agent system, and then it can't accidentally realize that at some point in my life, I want a nice car, and then go and put me $200,000 in credit card debt and buy a car on my behalf because it has, memory of me searching for a car at one point. So, I think there needs to be a lot of guardrails to make that happen. But I do think there's a lot of, and Claire, to your point, I think there's a lot of things in which it's very clear that somebody does want to go through that workflow, and it would be pretty easy for the model to be able to make that assessment. And especially if there's a human in the loop component, you could be like, yep, that's exactly my shopping pattern, please go do that for me. I could see that just totally being automated away, which would be awesome.
So it's interesting because Madison's saying, I'll miss that sweet dopamine hit of purchasing something myself. But I actually wonder, sort of thinking live, what would be kind of delightful. I mean, say that you, like you said, Logan, probably every agentic system is going to, have a budget, have access to X amount of dollars that you, okay, fine. Now, if say I had $10, on Gemini, and I was like, hey, I'm kind of cool with you spending $10, however you want, delight me and surprise me, right? What if one day flowers showed up? Like, hey, it seems like you had a hard conversation, with your kid last night. I think you need flowers today. I kind of would love that. So, right?
My push is it takes out the, like, I think to Madison's point, you sort of lose some of the humanity of like what made that experience. Like, I mean, the flowers themselves are nice, but like, I think the thing that people actually appreciate is like somebody spent the time. Like mom, I just ordered last night flowers for my mom for Mother's Day.
Logan, are you telling me that I'm just a cold-hearted, terrible person?
No, I think what Logan is saying is that his love language is acts of service.
Not the agent doing it.
Yeah, it's not the agent doing it. I do really think that that's at least partially true. I also think, to Madison's point, like there's like category, and Claire, actually, I think this goes to your point as well. There's like categories of different shopping, which like you don't get the dopamine hit. Like I don't, I'm not excited about going and buying paper towels. Like that's not interesting to me. I just actually want that to be automated because that's a little bit more drudgery than it is excitement. But like when I'm shopping for new clothes, like perhaps that is something that's like actually interesting as I go through all those. So I think that's like not, I don't think it's that black and white.
All right, fair. So Bob, what about you? Agent, take my money.
I want to have the willpower to say I would not use this, but I know that's not the fact. So I know that I would probably incrementally do it, and then probably would be a big part of what I do. Because I mean, I'm just all about convenience. And if it becomes more convenience and it takes some of the drudgery of thinking about how to make these decisions and get the things that I need, if it streamlines that, then absolutely. But I'm looking forward to the conversations that I'd be having with my wife when we're looking over the bills and arguing who bought this, because we already do this now, right? Did you buy that? What? Should we contact the credit card company and mark it as fraud? But I can see, no, that was the agent. No, I didn't do that, honey. I didn't buy that thing.
Yeah, it's the agent. It had its own intelligence and it did something.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. We've got a couple more stories to get through, and then we've got an audience game, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. So we're gonna keep cranking. Story number 5 is Leaderboard Illusion paper questions Chatbot Arena rankings. This really like ruffled everybody's feathers. This was interesting. So researchers showed vendors can overfit LM Arena and climb the leaderboard without real-world gains. Andre Carpathy notes Gemini felt worse in practice while Claude excelled, yet ranked low. That was obviously just his opinion. Carpathy suggested watching Open Router's usage-based board. So on the screen, you're seeing the usage-based board. I think I'm going to call this out for a second. This is pretty interesting. So Open Router is a service you sign up for. You pop in your credit card, and then you have access to almost all of the LLM APIs. And you can switch out models just whenever you want. And so his point was, this is really kind of rubber meets the road, right? What models are people using? And Landon, if you can go choose, instead of top this week, maybe choose, top today, or that's what, just pick something different and see what kind of happens here. Interesting. So we got 4.0 mini topping today, Gemini 2.0 flash, which is interesting, creeping up there. So he was saying this is kind of rubber meets the road. We can do evals all we want, but the truth is, what models are people using? Thought that was kind of interesting. So in the audience, I would love to hear you all let us know. Have leaderboards, ever steered you wrong? What real world tasks are your best litmus test for model quality? Logan, I know you think a lot about evals. You think a lot about what works for people. Where are we going with evals, and what's this going to look like in the future?
Yeah, I think I'll make one more generic comment, which is I think most leaderboards are capturing sort of this like sliver of a point of view. And I think it's actually like really easy, like in any sliver of a point of view, it can be over-indexed on like one specific thing. I think and if folks have seen like artificial analysis, and as an example, when you sort of extrapolate this across like all of the benchmarks, you start to see like a pretty wide perspective of what the capability of the model is. And I think it's like, so my sort of general suggestion for developers or folks who are looking through this is like, yes, there's certain benchmarks that are maybe approximating something that you care about. But oftentimes there's actually a bunch of really interesting information as you sort of look more broadly across all of them at like what, you can make the model better at something. What's the trade-off of doing that? And you need a bunch of information. Like that's oftentimes actually not reflected on like a one specific individual benchmark or metric. You need to see a bunch of information in order to be able to make that assessment. But in general, like I think the underlying subtext of a lot of the story of the last 2 years has been that it's actually just hard to do evals, and like leaderboards are really difficult, and understanding model quality is really difficult. And what do you actually care about as a user or a developer is difficult to articulate. It's like all of these built up layers on top of each other of complexity. And at the most fundamental level, I think there's also this failure to realize like how much things in life are actually eval problems, and how badly us as humans do the evaluation metrics. And you can think of like, there's a ton of examples of this in human life. One of them is like job performance is like essentially an eval problem at the end of the day. And for folks who have ever gone through like a performance rating process at any job or company they've ever had, like it's super archaic. It's a little bit cryptic in a lot of ways. And like, that's like a fundamental part of a lot of people's working lives. So it gives you appreciation for people who are trying to solve this on the model front. It's just like not an easy problem to solve. It's like very human in a lot of ways.
It's super hard. I love how you pointed out like job evaluation is like an eval. And this is why job evaluation is so bad. Like we all know it. Like it's basically doesn't work because it's a very, very hard problem to solve. Claire, I'm gonna go to you in a second, but I want to call out Dan Mack's comment, which echoes my sentiment very much. He said, leaderboards or benchmarks are like online reviews, not completely useless, but you never know until you try yourself. And I find the same. It's like, well, why am I using Gemini 2.5 Pro right now so much? It's because it works. Like everything I'm doing with coding, it works, right? And then when I steer off to 3.7, things start going weird. So I just come back. I don't know what that means or how to evaluate that. I just know that's where I am. Claire, how are you choosing what model to use, and do you care about these evals? Like walk us through.
Yeah. So I'm just like test and production or GTFO. Like there's just no replacement for finding a way to measure the quality and performance of your experiences in production with real users. And I think one of the amazing things about building AI powered products is that they're very general purpose, right? Even if we go back to an AI IDE, you could build a marketing website, you could build some complex backend service, you could build a lot of things with this general purpose tool. And so you have to think about, for any given model prompt parameter combination, how do I bring some structure to how I measure, am I making Ryan happy? Am I making Claire happy? Who am I making happy? And I think designing your observability and metrics matters almost even more than designing your evals, which is how many accepts do you get in a row? How long does it take? How long are average sessions with these models? How frequently do your users switch from preferring, 3.7 to 2.5 to 0.3? Like you have to start instrumenting your AI products, your agentic systems to give you a quantitative sense of the performance of these models in aggregate across your customer base, because there really is no other way to make good decisions. So I am constantly running experiments on models, doing model switching, taking into account customer feedback, latency performance, error rates, token use, all of those things that aggregate up to me being able to make some quantified decisions here with the actual performance in production by users. But I don't think we're talking enough about how to build those measurement systems in order to bring that structure into place.
Amen.
Claire, I have a really quick question. Does LaunchDarkly help do that? And this is
Me
not a product
too.
plug.
I love you.
Plug.
Yes. So we have an AI configs product that basically lets you pull all your prompt and model configuration out of code. So get it out of your repo, bunch of red diffs, and then run, target, experiment, and measure. So a good example of this is on ChatPRD. we went through the OpenAI journey of 4.0 to like, we'll do 4.5 for just a hot minute and see if anybody likes it. And we'll charge them $1 gajillion to 4.1. And I ran a bunch of experiments. What was really interesting is 4.5, which seems to be like a flash in the pan and they're probably going to pull, got great customer feedback. Everybody loved the output. Great writer. It was abysmally slow and 10 times as expensive. And in fact, because it was abysmally slow, it had a higher error rate because people were like timing out and refreshing and having network errors. And so I was able to make this decision, like the trade-off there, incremental quality relative to performance wasn't worth it. But then when 4.1 came out, ran the same experiment, much higher quality ratings for document generation, lower latency, 0 error rates, much significant, like lowered cost. That's an easy decision. So we're running experiments like that, and none of that requires code. I can do it on the fly.
Wow.
All the metrics are built out of the box. And so that's been something that, you know, I think LaunchDarkly has a role to play in AI, and that's probably it. Cha-ching.
Perfect use case. Well, y'all, it is time for the audience game. And my amazing guests, I'm going to ask you to participate because I want you to show everyone how smart you are. So we are going to play a Tech Tab AI trivia game. So let's get. All right, everybody. It's time for some trivia. So pop in the game pin 1083200. Head to kahoot.it. And everybody in the comments, hop in there. This is your chance to win and show everybody how smart you are. While we're waiting for people to join, want to call out some cool comments. Matt Wesney was talking about instruction following. Said instruction following matter to me and how well the error handling fixes go. Claude used to be king, but I've been singing Gemini's praises for the last 6 months. So I'm sure that's music to Logan's ears. We've got a bunch of people hopping in. Bobby, are you Bobby D?
Yeah, Bobby D.
Logan's here with an exclamation. I love it. Claire, have you joined secretly?
No, I'm trying to.
Here we go. Oh, Pat's here. Let's see how Pat does. He's probably going to win. All right, we're going to get started in just a minute. I'm not going to play because I already know all the answers. So, all right, we're going to get started. Let's get started. Here we go, everybody. Audience chat bot. I love it. Here we go. And Landon, if you want to play a couple tunes for us in the background while we go, I'll talk you through these questions. Here we go. Got to be fast because there's awards for being the fastest. So when was the term artificial intelligence coined? While you think about this, a couple fun facts. The founders of AI boldly proposed that machines could eventually simulate every aspect of human learning and intelligence. And before the term AI was even a term, a famous, quote, imitation game was proposed in 1950. All right. So far, we've got one correct answer. Y'all are not doing very well so far. Let's see how it goes. J-Dog is winning. No one else got this correct. Come on, my amazing panel. What's going on here? All right, let's go to question 2. What is the dot product of vectors 1, 3, and 2, 4? All right, so why are we talking about vectors and matrix and multiplication? This is how AI actually works, y'all. A simple math operation is a key ingredient AI uses to figure out how similar things are, like 2 songs or 2 faces. And neural networks perform billions of these types of calculations every second. The correct answer is 3, was 14, and 3 of you got it. Now, no using Gemini, no using OpenAI, no using Claude, just so we know. Let's see how everybody's doing. What does the leaderboard look like? J-Dog continues to dominate. Bob, well done. You're on there now. Steph, Logan, what's happening over there? Okay, let's go. See, he's the one guy that's not cheating with AI. All right, question 3. AI models can only be trained with supervised learning. True or false? A couple things to note about this. Some AIs learn like students with answer keys using data that humans have already labeled. Other AIs are like digital detectives, finding surprising patterns in AI all by themselves. All right, let's see. Well, everybody did pretty well. 9 of you got this correct. 2 of you got it wrong. Let's see how the leaderboard stacks up. Let's see. Next. Ooh, Bob takes the lead.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. J-Dog fell down. Steph. It's kind of, Logan's creeping up now. He's above the audience chat bot. So that's good. His job review is not dependent on this, I promise. Who's known as the father of AI? An extra bonus points if you know who is in that bill. The AI that one person often called, quote, the father of AI organized the 1956 Dartmouth workshop where the term AI was officially born.
I never submitted.
Oh, no.
I would just click the thing.
You're too excited. All right. The trick answer, all of them are correct. You can interpret any one of these amazing folks as being the father of AI. So let's keep going and see how we're stacked. Oh, Bob's on fire. How do you feel about that?
I'm conflicted.
All right.
I'm guessing luckily.
Okay, well done. All right. Got a couple more questions. Which AI program won at chess in 1997? Deep Blue, AlphaGo, Siri, or Watson? A couple of fun things to note about this is that the AI that famously beat a world chess champion in 97 actually lost to him the year before. Let's read. I gotta click my next button. How we doing here? Oh, Logan is creeping up. Bob still dominates. We're getting there, right? Here we go. 6 out of 10. What was the first AI chatbot? All right, y'all. Dendril. Wow, that's a terrible name. Sherdlu, logic theorist. A couple things to know about this. The first chatbot from the 1960s cleverly mimicked a psychotherapist by mostly asking questions back to the user. All right, let's see what everybody thought here.
I guessed right again.
Logan, you maybe guess.
I started cheating. That's what helped.
I think that's the problem, is that it's just too tempting, right? All right, we've got a couple more questions. What is the Turing test used for? A couple of fun things to know about this. The famous test for machine intelligence was originally called the imitation game by its creator in 1950. And also there's a good movie with that name. So, All right, we've got a couple more seconds left. The test isn't about getting answers right, but whether an AI can chat so well you can't tell if it's not human. So the answer was measure intelligence. Most of you did pretty well. 5 of you, well done. See if Bobby's still winning. Bobby D, get Max's on quick on the heels. CVO, J-Dog, well done. All right, 2 more questions. Which AI system beat humans in Jeopardy? Let's see if everybody can get this right. The AI that conquered Jeopardy learned by reading 200 million pages of text, including all of Wikipedia, but played offline. FYI. The game show AI even had its own avatar and had to physically press the buzzer against the human opponents. All right, seems like everybody knew that. Well done. Let's see what happens here. Oh, Logan takes the lead. You should be proud of yourself. Well done. All right, folks, we have, I believe, 2 more questions. Which AI concept mimics the human brain? One key AI concept is directly modeled on the interconnected blank, you'll see, found in the human brain. These brain-inspired AI networks learn by tweaking connections between their artificial neurons, much like our brains do. All right, everybody seems to know this one. Well done. Logan's just squeaking ahead of Bob. Love it. Last question we've got for the day before we wrap is, what year did AI first defeat a human in Go? Bonus points if you've ever played Go. I have not. The AI that first beat a pro Go player achieved this feat about a decade earlier than many experts predicted, by the way. The game of Go has more possible moves than atoms in the universe, making it an immense challenge for AI. So close. 3 of you got that. So let's see. who's going to win here. Number 3 was J-Dog. J-Dog, you deserve a raise. Bobby D, number 2. I think who's this going to be? Our very own Logan Kilpatrick. Yay! Well done.
I forgot how great of a game Kahoot is. Kahoot is just too well done. They deserve the credit.
It's good fun, isn't it? Well, we were a little bit over time because we were having so much fun. I just want to thank all of our amazing guests for being here. Claire, thanks for bringing your product knowledge and your technical knowledge. Appreciate being here. Logan, thanks for bringing us the latest and greatest about what's actually happening inside of Google Gemini and bringing your expertise. Really appreciate you being here. And Bob, my amazing co-host. What would we do without you cheating at Kahoots? Everybody, thanks for being here. We're excited to be bringing the show to you every 2 weeks. We'll be here next on May 20th. Same time, same place. We're going to bring you the latest news, some fun games. We're going to teach you a couple things. Everybody, thanks for hopping in the comments and sharing your thoughts with us. We really, really appreciate you. We will see you next time on Tech Tab on May 20th. Take care. All right. Thanks, everybody. We are going to see you on May 20th. Make sure to stop by, hit that like and subscribe button on the channel. And we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. See you soon.